It's about the proximity of whiteness. It's for our Bejistan brothers and sisters who feel like if they vote for Trump, they appear more white and less brown. And that's part of it. The proximity to whiteness is still a thing in America. The Republicans really know how to throw that red meat and get people galvanized.
During an interview with comedian Hasan Minhaj, fellow comedian, actor, and producer John Leguizamo shared his perspective on the Republican Party gaining ground with select sections of racial minority and immigrant voter communities over the years, calling out some of the MAGA movement's most influential mouthpieces in the process.
The one that I'd like to meet is Stephen Miller, who hates Latinos more than life itself. He's the architect of all this for Trump. I like to meet him and knock him out.
We honestly really can't blame him either, considering Stephen Miller has devoted his life's work to spreading some of the most vile white supremacist talking points imaginable and making it harder and harder to be comfortable living as an immigrant in this country, or anyone who isn't white for that matter. Just put yourself in Leguizamo's shoes and think about how you would react to a community you claim to identify with being slandered and smeared for decades, and the real-world effect this rhetoric justifies.
You would establish large-scale staging grounds for removal flights. So you grab illegal immigrants, and then you move them to the staging grounds, and that's where the planes are waiting for federal law enforcement to then move those illegals home. You deputize the National Guard to carry out immigration enforcement, and then you also deploy the military to the southern border, not just with a mission to observe, but with an impedance and denial mission. In other words, you reassert the fundamental constitutional principle that you don't have a right to enter into our sovereign territory, to even request the asylum claim. The military has the right to establish a fortress position on the border and to say no one can cross here at all. Our foreign enemies and foreign adversaries from all over the world, from the Middle East and from Asia and far-flung countries, are infiltrating through the wide open southern border. You have a party and a president and a left-wing movement in this country that is so determined to bring illegal aliens in for electoral votes, for congressional seats, to make them citizens, to increase and make permanent their political power, they are willing to even risk multiple terrorist attacks on this country.
America is for Americans and Americans only.
You have two policy objectives that you proceed with utter determination on. Seal the border, no illegals in, everyone here goes out. That's very straightforward.
This is just a small sampling of what Stephen Miller was saying before he was officially back in the White House. Leguizamo also had smoke for Proud Boys leader Enrique Tarrio and neo-Nazi Nick Fuentes, highlighting perhaps the most crucial aspect of why Trump's politics appeal to all sorts of demographics.
These Latinos who are also brown or white passing, or white Latinos, are also part of this sort of white nationalist Christian movement, Christian nationalism. It's so wild, but we're allowed to enter there as long as you're hating, you know?
You know what's really interesting? The right wing is so welcoming to anyone and everyone, regardless of race, religious beliefs, criminal history, past allegiances, beliefs, etc., as long as you're playing by their rules and fighting their fight for them. In other words, there's always a place for anyone on the team if they're willing to work towards achieving the Republican Party's end goal of white Christian nationalism, even if you're not a part of the in group. You know why they do this? Because they think it's going to dispel the truth that they are racist, right? That they are misogynistic, that they are homophobic, all these things. Because we have gay people on our team, we have black people on our team, we have women on our team, we have Latino people on our team, right? And so on and so forth for all these marginalized communities. If there are members from them, they believe that they can position themselves as being right within and that they're not, targeting anybody or discriminating because they have members from that community fighting their fight for them. Again, not for these marginalized communities, right? Not their fight, but for the fight of the Republican Party, for the country to become a white Christian nationalist society.
They have the temerity to say that every single invader that Joe Biden let in should get
their own individual judicial trial before they're deported, one at a time. Each one gets $1 million trial in front of a communist judge to decide whether or not we can send them home. How about hell no? How about we pick them up and we get them out of this country so they can't hurt anyone else?
No one was mistakenly sent anywhere. The only mistake that was made is a lawyer put an incorrect line in a legal filing and they've since been relieved of duty. He is El Salvadorian. He is an illegal alien. He was deported to El Salvador. When the media talks about the idea that there was a mistaken removal, it implies to, I think, a normal listener, the wrong person was sent somewhere. He's an illegal alien from El Salvador. Where was he sent? To El Salvador. Where does he belong? In El Salvador.
Right? It's different.
He belongs.
Sending someone home and sending them into a prison that they could remain in for
It is
life.
up to El Salvador how to handle the process for their own citizens. Again, what you seem to be asking us to do is to change the government and the laws of El Salvador. Once someone's out of our country, that becomes the problem of their host country, not our country. These people chose to invade us. So there's a lot of concern from the corporate media about the invaders, but they chose to invade us. It's our responsibility to return them back to where they came from.
First of all, Garcia was not deported and subsequently released to the public, like what usually happens during deportations. Instead, he was imprisoned in a terrorist concentration camp. And the reason why Miller and the rest of the Trump administration are hammering these lies about the facts of his case in the media, one, is to make the American public more distrustful than they already are of the mainstream media. Okay? That's number one. Number two, they want to control the narrative and they want to make you believe that they are doing everything to protect the country and make sure America is safe as possible, when we know that isn't true at all. Because if they really were interested in making America safe, they wouldn't be doing the thousands of things that they have already done since Trump took office. Okay? Like, let's be for real. If they really wanted to make it safe, then we wouldn't be promoting white nationalists. But again, they're not fooling us. They want you to believe that they're trying to make things safe. You know, they're invading us. You know, we send them back to their country and we don't have anything to do with that after that. Okay. Okay, buddy.
A DOJ lawyer who has since been relieved of duty, a saboteur, a Democrat, put into a filing incorrectly that this was a mistaken removal. It was not. This was the right person sent to the right place.
Are you convinced he is still a member of MS-13? That was your original charge.
Yes. But here's the thing, Bill. Yes, but here, not only am I convinced of it, not only is El Salvador convinced of it, Bill, he's an illegal alien from El Salvador with the deportation order. So his only options in life, Bill, his only options in life are to be deported to El Salvador or to be deported to some other country. That's it. What are we supposed to do, Bill? Keep all the world's terrorists on our soil forever? If you're here illegally, you're going to get sent home.
So quickly,
and I'm sorry to everyone that you've been living through this media hoax.
ICE and DOJ officials have told the courts at least 3 other times that sending Mr. Abrego Garcia to El Salvador was an error. First, in March, acting ICE Field Office Director Robert Cerna told the court under penalty of perjury that it was a, quote, administrative error. Then this month, DOJ lawyers, including senior officials appointed by Trump, told an appeals court, quote, he was sent to that country due to an administrative error. And then days later, the Solicitor General John Sauer, the Trump-appointed lawyer who represents the administration at the Supreme Court, so a top lawyer, told the Supreme Court, quote, the United States concedes that removal to El Salvador was an administrative error. So Mr. Miller pinning the idea that this was an error on one sneaky Democratic plant at the Justice Department is nonsense. But the court explicitly said they have to facilitate him getting out of jail in El Salvador. The Supreme Court also wrote, quote, that the government should be prepared to share what it can concerning the steps it has taken and the prospect of further steps. And so far, the administration has been sharing only the vaguest, slimmest of steps updates to the district court judge who ordered those updates. Third of all, it's worth noting the Supreme Court did not explicitly guarantee that Mr. Abrego Garcia can be deported again. It simply wrote his case should be, quote, handled as if it would have been had he not been improperly sent to El Salvador.
It's very clear that the Trump administration is exploiting the bigotry and anti-immigrant sentiment already present in our country to help facilitate the executive branch's power grab and weakening of checks and balances, because they understand there is a narrative out there, or there are a lot of people out there, whether it's political officials or everyday American citizens who cannot stand immigrants, who despise them. There is so much xenophobia as well in our country. And they're just using that sentiment, that feeling from a lot of people in America to abuse their power and try and make sure nobody can check them. It's really disgusting. Really disgusting. For Rebel HQ, I'm Chris Williamson. We'll see you next time.